Okay. Okay, it's 5:30 p.m. I'd like to begin this caucus session of council. We have 3 items for action this evening under new business, one being 1 ordinance and 2 motions. Are there any recommended changes or additions to the agenda presented this evening?
I have none.
I have none. Okay. I would like to call this May 4th, 2016 council meeting to order. Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Here. Under minutes, there are none. Under reading of communications, Mr. Tisch.
The only communication I have actually came from the finance director, and it had to do with Concerts on the Green, in which she reported that we had received in excess of $6,000 in donations for the Concerts on the Green. I know that I was harassing John and the Rotary Club a little bit over their donation, and I know that they did donate $1,000, so I'd like to publicly say thank you to the Rotary Club and to you. Okay, excuse me. I can't get it out of the car.
He was a Rotarian, you get fined for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's the president of the Lions Club making sure that. That was it.
Okay. Mr. LaCicero. I have Mr. Morvay.
Just, Joe, if you could tonight give us an update on the bridges and what's closed, what's open, and that's been, everyone's concern. Just FYI, City Council has been meeting every Wednesday morning at 6:30 to look at trying to put together a strategic plan, some kind of a vision that we can predict or rather budget out for the next 5 years. And what do we want to look like? What's the city going to, what's the city want? Do we want businesses in here, businesses in our community or not? Or, what are we going to promote? How are we going to get there? And these discussions are going on every Wednesday morning. So the public is welcome, and just throw that out there if anybody's interested. We need to get a direction because we need to get to the constituents and the voters and the people of Canfield. What really do we want? We're out of money. It's no lie. It's not a secret. Not out of money, but we have less to work with than we ever have, and so we got to figure out a direction, and that's what we're doing. And so you're welcome to be there with us.
I would suggest to you be prepared for a shock. All 5 of us look bad at 6:30 in the morning. Before we leave the Concerts on the Green, the schedule already exists, if you don't know that, but I think it's worthy of note that Barb Dixie, last year, when her kids asked her, what do you want for Mother's Day? I think she kind of made this all possible. She said, why don't you make a donation to Concerts on the Green? And when I asked her to be the chair to get the donations, she just was beaming. And her son, Jack, grabbed the bull by the horns, and he was the catalyst that made that work. Now, we had some organizations that stepped up, and we'll find out who they are when it's on the brochure. But I just want to thank the community for stepping up and making this possible. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Warino?
Yes, a couple pieces of correspondence. Received an email from the Mill Creek Metro Parks. They're having an open house to talk about the extension, or phase 3 of the bikeway. This would be the final stage of it in Mahoning County, taking it from Western Reserve to Columbiana County. That open house is on Thursday, tomorrow, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Also received a notice from the Ohio Department of Transportation. They're having a pre-construction conference with reference to the paving project, so we'll get to find out when and how soon that'll be happening. That meeting is taking place Friday at 9 a.m. and Todd will be attending that in my place. And lastly, I received correspondence from the American Legion, Post 177, again requesting a donation and participation in the Memorial Day services on May 30th, 2016. I'll put this in the memo as well, and please let me know if you'll be available for that date so we can let them know who will be participating. And that's all I have under correspondence.
Thanks, John. On reports of committees, city manager and department heads. Mr. Lucicero. Mr. Morvay?
Yeah, so the newspaper had an article about the fire chief. I'm just going to address this right up front because I think it needs to be. There's just a tremendous amount of misinformation that goes out, and for whatever reason, it's just disheartening, and it's really sad that it happens. But a couple years back, we changed over our accounting system from the state system to QuickBooks. In that process, the chief was getting paid 24 pays in the old system. Moving to the new system, it was bi-weekly. So he got 2 extra pays in that 1 year. Actually, it was our fiscal officer who caught the mistake, notified the auditor. How do we rectify this? How do we take care of this? How do we make this right? Trust me, the auditors have gone through Chief Hutchison's pension, his payroll, everything. And why it was a matter of the auditor getting back to us and telling us how to repay this properly. And in the meantime, Hutch had been putting some money back into the fire district for that purpose. Well, at the board meeting, I guess this came up that the auditor finally told us how to do it. And Ms. Cartwright, I believe she asked for a resolution to get it done. And somebody ran to the Vindicator with this story that Hutch was getting paid off. And so that's how snowballs happen. And there was nothing more to this than simply an error. We caught it. Auditor was notified. It's being rectified. Nobody got paid off for keeping a road open. Nobody got paid off for being the chief of the fire district. Is that plain enough? I guess.
If I may interject, one of the misinformations, again, that we received in our office was that it was a department head of the city, and that I tried to explain the separation between there's a distinct fire board and then there's the city council, 2 separate agencies. Our finance director has nothing to do with the finance and the operation of the police district, the fire district. And it was told to me that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I mean, I don't know how to get that information out to the people that there is a distinct separation there.
Yeah.
And
the fire district is made up of the township and the city. And this was formed years ago as a fire district. Both the township and the city pay into the fire district, and it's operated as a fire district. It benefits the township and the city. The city has nothing to do with the accounting. Christine does nothing for the fire district. We have our own fiscal officer, and I don't know. I wish people, when they had these concerns, maybe instead of going to McDonald's and talking to the person there drinking coffee with them, but go to somebody knowledgeable and ask these questions. It's just, wow, I can't believe sometimes the misinformation that gets out there, and then it's like a snowball. The phone calls that I got, Joey got, it's just, it's mind-boggling. But to tell you that there's nothing corrupt going on, I don't know what to say.
Very
Oh, and by the way, I just was coming here, and the new fire truck is in the bay, and so I'm sure they would welcome anybody who want to go over and take a look at it. It's quite a piece of equipment. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Mayor?
I had my court report for the month of April. We took in a gross of $6,272.11, and we paid to the various accounts that we must pay to. And we had net collections of $5,331.11.
Thanks, Mayor. Joe?
Okay, gentlemen, we have 3 items of legislation to deal with this evening. The first being an ordinance declaring surplus equipment. And this ordinance is necessary to declare a tractor that we're looking to either trade in or sell for the purchase of a new tractor that was budgeted this year. That's the only piece of equipment that will be declared in this particular ordinance. We also have 2 motions, the first being a motion to change the dates of the council meeting from June 15th, 2016 at 5:30 p.m. to June 22nd at 5:30 p.m. And again, the purpose of this change is that we've scheduled a town hall meeting on that particular evening, and we'll have the council meeting the following week after the town meeting. And the last one is also a motion setting the times and dates of the council meetings for the month of July and August pursuant to Section 309 of the Charter of the City of Canfield. In those particular months, we only have 1 meeting, and we're setting the dates for those 2, in July and August. In other business, in the packet last week I put in the proposed changes to the digital sign ordinance, or to our sign ordinance to include digital signs. If you have any comments or concerns about that, please get those to me this week. Mark's on vacation, but he would like to have that information as early as possible when he gets back, so that we can draft an ordinance for the next meeting dealing with that particular issue.
Joe, what is the expectation that we each say, is this an RSVP, or does we need to hear from all of us?
No, just send me, as far as, I don't understand the question, as far as...
If we don't send you information...
Yeah, then I assume that there's no change or anything that you want to the ordinance, right?
Good point.
Wish I'd have asked it that way.
Sometimes that assumption's not always correct, but I just want to note it again. If you have anything, please get that back to me. John, you had mentioned about the road closures. We had heard from the county engineer's office. Raccoon Road is currently closed. 46 is proposed to be closed Monday for 21 days. So what they're doing is replacing the bridge decks over the turnpike. When that one is opened up, they're planning on closing Herbert Road, again over the turnpike, on June 20th is kind of the projected date as for the closure of 46 would be back open. Each of those are for 21 days is the anticipated schedule. All 3 of them are basically out of the city limits. They're under the control of the county engineer, and we really didn't have a whole lot of say-so. I know the fire chief wasn't particularly happy about having both Raccoon and 46 down at the same time, but we met in early spring with the Turnpike Commission and made our appeal or request to kind of space them out and let us know when they were going to do it. We didn't hear anything until we got back information from the county engineer. The other request we had is that we're looking at doing our State Route 46 project from Dartmouth to the Ohio Turnpike, and we were hoping to coordinate the 2 and have it closed at one time, and that didn't happen. So again, our concerns or comments were left unanswered, and again, it's something that's out of our control, that they're not in our city, and we didn't have the final say-so on it. So, the last item I have, we've negotiated a new gas rate, and we did it for a full year this time. We locked in a price of 0.42 cents for the next period, which begins in May through April of 2017. Again, it's a fixed rate. It's probably the lowest rate you're going to find out there right now, and I think locking it in for the full year was a good move. And that's all I have under, yes, that's all I have under report. Yes. Oh, sorry, one other thing, I see Sharon here. We have started bidding the demolition of 33 Kirk, and the bid opening date is the 24th at 10 a.m. We'll be receiving bids for that particular project. And lastly, Civic Day is Friday. Just a reminder again, the students will be here in this council chamber at 10:30, and then there's a luncheon that follows after their visit with the township.
Joe, is it true, no asbestos, that one test that you sent in?
Yeah, there was some, and it will be addressed in the bid specs. So they did find some samplings of asbestos, but they're very limited, and it's not going to be a major change order or higher cost. We don't believe so anyway.
Joe, when they do the demolition, there was precautions that are going to be built in for asbestos and mold and everything.
Right, and that's the reason for doing the testing, so they can isolate the areas where the asbestos was found and any other contaminants. There's certain requirements that they have to meet they're not just going to go in there with bulldozers and take it down.
Yeah, that was some concern, so thank you. What about Hickory Hollow? Can you comment on that or not?
The individual was cited. He appeared on Monday, I believe it was, for arraignment, and he'll be back in court on the, I don't know, Mayor, 23rd. But there's been no change in the activity of that place. He continues to just bring information,
What is our plan of action there? I mean, that can't happen. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, again, our plan of action is to force the homeowner through the courts, not just the mayor's court, but through the, I guess it's domestic relations court, that has determined he was competent, that he violated the court order, which was not to bring more material into the property and to start making reasonable repairs to it. He's done nothing. And to get him to abandon the property is sort of our hope, and if it can be salvaged and resold or demoed at some point in time. That's kind of the end game on that particular piece of property.
The bridges, Raccoon Road is currently closed, correct?
Yes.
And they're closing 46 on Monday. What's the schedule for reopening Raccoon Road?
They were all targeted for 21 days, so Raccoon's been closed for a week now. I would assume in a week and a half that's supposed to be open.
You know, it seems to me to be pretty ludicrous that we would close those two northbound routes at the same time.
That was our position in discussing this ahead of time with the Turnpike Commission, but again, it fell on deaf ears, and I even made a call to the Turnpike Commission about 2 weeks ago, and they wouldn't provide me with any information. The fellow I talked to was the same gentleman that we discussed the Timber Run project with, and said they hadn't had any plans in place yet. A week later, I hear from the county engineer they're doing closures, so it was very disturbing.
Is the county engineer doing the closures, or is that at the request of the Turnpike Commission, or?
Yeah, they would have to have just as we do, they would have to have taken legislative action to close those roads. So the county engineer had to have known about it more than a week ago, so that he can get the county commissioners to officially announce the closure of those roads.
It just makes absolutely no sense to me. You know, I don't know what other action to take, other than contact our state legislators.
Right.
And do something along that line, and maybe have the fire chief get involved in that, because that just makes no sense at all to me. I mean, least they can do would be stage the things.
I agree. It's very difficult to travel. During that particular time of both those being down, I don't know how. A lot of way to go around.
Well, you're not going to get any fire apparatus around without going down to start corners and back up and around that way if you've got a backup piece.
Well, what steps can we take? It sounds like
Yeah, that's probably a good suggestion, Chuck, to contact our local legislators, Joe Mahoning, and see if they have any input with the Turnpike Commission to delay
The other thing we could do
delay
is
the
take
closure.
the fire truck out there and set it on the bridge and let it,
like a barricade.
like a barricade. Yeah. Do we have any? Oh, wait a minute. How can I say it?
Yeah, I could make that call in the morning and see if we can get any help from our legislators.
I'm trying to make it more sense.
Chuck, just a point. There's fire equipment on both sides of that.
I understand that.
I know you do.
Very inconvenient.
Yeah, so Joe, you're gonna,
I will make that call in the morning.
Back to the gas rate, just real quick. Were the residents informed of this, or was that?
Yeah, letters should have gone out.
Okay.
I received it.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that everybody received it. I had a couple people ask me if we're going to redo anything for, they hadn't received anything, and I says,
And again, at the same time, in the letter, it should state that if you're already enrolled in the program, you need to do nothing. If you want to enroll, there's a deadline of which they have to get enrolled. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Christine?
The spreadsheets and notes for the 2015 GAP report were completed on Monday and uploaded to Julian and Grube. Carrie estimates that she'll have our report done for my review within another week or so. It needs to be filed by the end of the month with the state. Yesterday, we had the Office of Criminal Justice Services here to do an audit for the OVI Task Force grant. She verbally told me that everything was okay, but I probably will get a letter from her next week. And I was working on the preliminary budget of revenues and expenses for 2017.
In the month of April, we had no water main repairs, 4 funerals, which was 2 cremations and 2 full interments. We were out to plow and salt twice in April. We've got all the locations we've had water breaks since last fall have all been seeded. All the new graves in the cemetery have been seeded. And we've been busy trying to mow, weed eat, repair basins, sinkholes, cut brush, and patch streets.
For the month of April, we issued 16 permits for a total valuation of $151,538. There were 6 property maintenance letters sent out in the month of April. We received complaints about lawns and high grass, so I'm preparing property maintenance for those residents this time.
Chief.
Monday, I received a signed contract from Damascus Fire Department. I'll be forwarding that contract to the city manager for council's review. And the tentative date to begin servicing Damascus Fire will be June 1st, 2016. So you'll have that contract for your review in the next meeting, imagine. And well, we spoke of this a few meetings ago, but on Sunday, May 22nd, the Canfield Police Department will be at the Canfield Fairgrounds from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll be assisting the MS, it's an MS benefit cycling event at the fairgrounds. Our police department will be there for bike safety and children identikits. And we'll hopefully JT can get that message out there as well, so we can speak further on if you want to get a hold of me or email me. So, but we're always excited to provide that to the kids' identikit. The parents and children love that, and it's part of what we do. Looking forward to that.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief,
Sir?
is the Damascus contract similar to the others? Are there any Like what Green Township was, or,
It's very similar,
okay, thank you.
if not exact.
Thank you.
Under persons desiring additional information from department heads, may I ask that you step forward to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record, and keep your questions to 3 minutes maximum per person, no more than 30 minutes total. Your questions must only pertain to each department head's report this evening. Under recognition of persons desiring to speak before council, may I ask that you step forward to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record, and keep your comments brief. Right?
Good evening, I'm Frank Mejia, I reside at 220 Glenview. You guys look bad at 6:30 in the morning. Enough said.
Frank, we work, okay? I run a business, I teach, and
I know.
we agreed that was the time that we could devote to that.
I'm not objecting to it at all, I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, this needs to get done. I mean, we don't have
I'm just poking a little fun at it, that's all.
Yeah, I know, but this is a serious matter.
I agree.
It's been very productive, I thought. It's really productive.
Are there minutes kept of those meetings?
Yeah, it's public, it's been advertised. Yeah, so.
Are the minutes kept public?
Yeah,
Okay, good. At the last meeting, while speaking, in the portion of the meeting allocated to comments from persons desiring to appear before council, I was rudely interrupted and told my time had expired. No one had the courtesy to state the time limit would be imposed before I started to speak. How can you justify this undeniably crass, ill-mannered, and discourteous behavior? The issue is not time. The issue is council does not want to hear from the residents. Your credibility drops a few points in my eyes. By the way, the last time I recall any time limit on persons desiring to address council was Mr. Frazzini, who was president of council, and he recommended a 7-minute limit. Now it's currently 3 minutes. Also, at the last meeting, the staff was dismissed from attending the meeting. Is this going to be a practice, or was that a one-type thing?
They were done with the reports.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But the charter says they will attend and not make a cameo appearance. And for the last year and a half, they've attended for the whole meeting. If you go to Poland, Wordman, Austintown, Salem, they attend for the whole meeting. And I would hope that they have the interest and desire to stay here. One thing that I might point out was, during the discussion later in the meeting last week, you were discussing the amount of the shortfall. It was 800 to 1,000, or $1 million. If the finance director had been here, we might have got a more definitive answer. So there are times when it's appropriate to have them here, and I hope we can continue that practice. As part of my last meeting, I had some recommendations on how to streamline leaf collection. But I ran into a time limit that I didn't know existed. Never had a chance to do that. If we're going to use a time limit, I hope that will apply to everybody in the future. I think you will regret having done that, because there are going to be times when you're going to need more than 3 minutes from a person who's addressing you. So I would consider that in the future. Thank you for your time.
Under old business, there is none.
If the staff wishes to stay, they stay. If they wish to go, they go. Right.
I think they can do that.
That JT protected.
If they want to. Under new business, item A, A, as per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of the City of Canfield, move the council dispense with the requirement of full reading of the proposed ordinance and authorize it by title only. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Morvay. Discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
As per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of the City of Canfield, I move the council dispense with the requirement of 2 readings of the proposed ordinance and authorize adoption of the same upon its first reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mayor?
Mr.
Roll
Dragish?
call. Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
Mr. President, I have an ordinance declaring surplus property and authorizing its disposal. I move for passage.
Second.
Second, Mayor? Discussion?
Just, Joe, I understand this is a tractor that's kind of been used up and its useful life done, so we're trading it in for a new one? Is that
That's correct. Item that was budgeted this year.
Actually, I think the ordinance says trade in or sell outright, so he has the option of going with.
Gotcha, okay.
Public comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
And the number is?
2016-11.
Thank you. Item B. As per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of the City of Canfield, I move the council dispense with the requirement of full reading of the proposed motion and authorize it by title only. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Tisch. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes. Mr. President, I have a motion changing the dates of council meetings from June 15, 2016 at 5:30 p.m. to June 22nd, 2016 at 5:30 p.m. I move for passage.
Second. Second, Mr. Morvay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I thought that meeting, the town hall meeting was going to be at 6:30. It says 5:30.
No,
We
this
are
is-
changing
this is
the
the-
council meeting dates.
That's
The council meeting dates from that 5:30 council meeting to the...
I stand corrected.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
2016-8.
Thank you. As per the provisions of section 4.05 of the Charter of the City of Canfield, I move the council dispense with the requirement of full reading of the proposed motion and authorize it by title only. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Morvay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
Mr. President, I have a motion changing time and dates of council meetings for the months of July and August pursuant to section 3.09 of the Charter of the City of Canfield. We move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Second.
Oh, second?
I need a second.
Second, Mayor. Discussion?
The dates for the August meeting is the 17th, and the July meeting is the 13th.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Dragish?
Yes.
Mr. Kosar?
Yes.
Mr. LaCicero?
Yes.
Mr. Morvay?
Yes.
Mr. Tisch?
Yes.
The number is?
2016-9.
Thank you. Councilman comments? Mr. Tisch?
We have, as you know, been discussing our budget issues at 6:30 in the morning, the last couple of Wednesdays. And I think that, at least in my opinion, the consensus is that we are going to need some additional revenue. Some of the numbers, or some of the methods been thrown out. for several, primarily income tax and a property tax levy. I think the consensus of council, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are looking at a property tax levy to be placed on the ballot for the November election. And I think the consensus number, at least that we've talked about so far, is 3.9 mils, and to be a police levy. Although we have not formally enacted any legislation in that regard, I think that's what we are leaning toward at this point. And in that regard, I would like to ask the manager to direct the city attorney to prepare legislation to affect that type of a levy, and at that rate, with the idea that if there's some other thoughts on that, and the number to be inserted and those kinds of things, I guess that would change. The estimate that we have on that levy would be to generate about $750,000 for to be used in the police department, and that would just offset some of the expenses that we incur in that department. I think that we are asking the county auditor to provide us with some information with regard to what that levy will cost each of us as taxpayers based on your individual real estate and what it is valued at. We're going to have some guidelines based on maybe a $100,000 house or $100,000 tax valuation, a $50,000 tax valuation, and those kinds of things. I think the mayor's been handling that discussion, and I don't know exactly what those breakdowns are going to be, but we hope to have some more information so that we can pass that on to everybody as we go forward. But nothing is cast in stone on that rate. I think that's what we've talked about at this point, and until we actually vote on it, that would be subject to change. Am I correct in what we...
Correct. Very accurate.
I think it's important to add that when we talked about what we were going to do, we looked at the information from the questionnaire. If you were here at the last meeting, it was crystal clear that the people in Canfield place safety as the #1 concern. And that led us to decide that it needs to be a police levy. Though there are other needs, that's where we landed. And I just think it's important for people to know that their voices have been heard. It was not done in a vacuum.
There is one, I guess, fly in the ointment, if you will, with regard to the real estate tax levy, and that is, even if it ends up passing in November this year, the first revenue we would see from that levy is not going to be until first quarter 2018, so that 2017 still is a extremely lean year for us, and cuts can be even more forthcoming as a result of that. We may be able to make some adjustments and slide some money around and that kind of thing, but you know, that's one of the implications of going with a real estate tax levy as opposed to maybe an income tax or something like that.
Also, if you aren't aware, June the 15th at MCCTC at the Joyce Brothers Conference Center, we're going to have a town hall that starts, as Bernie said, at 6:30. And by that time, I think we're going to have a very complete idea of what we need to do. And I hope you all attend and bring 3 or 4 of your neighbors. We'd like to break some records at this town hall, which shouldn't be too hard to do, right? Shouldn't be. Yeah, right. That was sarcastic.
Mr. Moore?
Yeah, so I just add to this Wednesday morning meeting that not only are we discussing the needs that we have right now that are immediate, but we're also putting together some plans that go forward, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and developing some kind of a strategic plan of, you know, how do we want to look like, what do we want to look like, what do we need in the city, and how do we get there? So even though this levy, if we are successful with it, will help us with the immediate needs, chances are that the long-term fix is probably going to be some kind of a permanent income tax. If we want to keep Canfield growing in the city that we have now, there's no doubt about it, and it's being more and more apparent in these meetings and projecting budgets out 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And so, again, you know, this may be a temporary fix. A levy is not a permanent thing. And so, down the road, you know, depending on what the citizens want, we may have to enact something or ask for something more permanent to get the city that we want. It's just, it's being discussed, and so, again, anybody is welcome to attend, and I appreciate your input. So with that, then I want something a little jovial, so I got a joke for our one tonight. So a busload of politicians were driving down a country road when the bus ran off the road and crashed into a tree in an old farmer's field. The old farmer, after seeing what happened, went over to investigate. A few days later, the local sheriff came out looking for the missing politicians, saw the crashed bus, and asked the farmer where all the politicians had gone. The farmer said, "I buried them all out back." The sheriff then asked, "Were they all dead?" The old farmer replied, "Well, some of them said they weren't, but you know how them politicians lie."
I'm speechless. Just a comment in passing. You hear us talk about how revenues have fallen off. We haven't been overspending, but revenues have fallen off to the tune of approximately $1 million a year. And we're talking about a levy that's going to give us between $750,000 and $800,000. I hope it becomes obvious that we're trying to help ourselves. The leaf pickup, the donations to various things, concerts on the green we've salvaged with community getting involved. That's a good thing. But it's too easy to just raise the taxes and business as usual. We are taking a look at everything that we spend, everything that we think we need, putting things off until we get a better financial situation. It's important that you know that. At the last council meeting, a friend of mine for 50 years I knew the guy. We asked for input. Sometimes you better watch what you ask for because he gave us very, very valuable input. He said, "The people don't trust you guys." Now, that was good input, but it was painful. It's hard for me to believe, geez, I don't know that I've ever stolen anything or taken anything or whatever. But a 50-year friend said that. He was helping us. He was helping us. I guess I want you to believe what we're doing. Take it on faith. Watch us. But if it's not obvious that we are trying our darndest, and some of the things we're doing are unpopular, I was classified as being arrogant when I referred to my leaves going to leaf heaven. Okay, wherever that is, but because my grass takes it. It's not a big deal to me, but it's $100,000, give or take, Frank. Don't even comment on that. Okay? But folks, help us. Give us input. Come to that 6:30 meeting. Let's see what we talk It's wide open, it's wide open. Help us, if you think you don't trust us, look us in the eye and tell us. And then tell us what we should do. And if it makes sense, we'll do. We're open to suggestion. That's all I have.
Thanks, man. I guess going last, everybody kind of says everything. But at the same time, I guess I just wanted to let people know too. I mean, we're all sitting up here and we're talking about a levy and we want to do this, we want to do police. And I think what we really want the people of Canfield to understand is that the reason why we're putting a police levy is, yes, we need the funds for the city and to maintain it. But I guess that's the key thing, to maintain it. And it's kind of one of those things where, like, if we don't get those funds and this levy doesn't pass, it doesn't look good for the, this is a very safe place, and people like Canfield because it is safe. And I think that's the key. And I just hope that the public understands and knows that why we're asking for that, and hopefully they support us. So, with that, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.